What's going on, fam? Thank you for tuning in. This is the briefcase, and this is the encore where we're talking about CNM, poly, open relationships, and more. Again, we're going
I
to bring
can't hear him, though.
five
Don't be talking trash.
sex therapists. We're having some technical difficulties, um, but we're gonna still make it happen for you all tonight. I want to send a special shout out to Let's Talk About Sex. Just did a live with them, and they graciously said that they're going to tune over to us right now and become a part of our live tonight. So welcome. Let's Talk About Sex, and everybody else too. It's all the same, fam. And so we want to go ahead and get off like we usually do with the intros. We're gonna keep it snappy this time because it's the same people. We know everybody now, so we ready to really dig into it and move forward and just have a little fun. So without further ado, ladies, feel free to introduce yourselves.
Go ahead, Dr. Lynn.
Oh, hey. I'm like, wait a minute. Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me back. I'm Dr. Monica Lynn. I have been doing sex therapy, more specifically working with couples and, well, not couples. I don't like using couples, but just like folks in relationships, working through CNM, consensually non-monogamous and polyamorous relationships for quite a while. And I'm excited to be back. Thank you all for having me back on the briefcase.
Hey.
Is someone's thing on?
Yeah, I think there's a little feedback. I think Cassie's trying to get it together over there.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Go ahead, Ruby. You good?
Okay. All right. My name is Ruby Bowie Johnson. I am a sex therapist in the DFW area, Dallas-Fort Worth. I work with couples who are looking to open their relationship, who are experienced, questioning. I work a lot with couples who are poly and kinky. Additionally, I have a few other specialties, but I love working with my Black queer people. So that's me.
Beautiful. Looks like Chaz bowed out, so I'll go ahead. So my name is Boris Chestnut, and I am glad to be back with everybody again. I am also a sex therapist working with a number of different populations, but specifically focused on creating more spaces for Black men in sex therapy. Also working with sex offenders, doing sex offender groups, all that, and then some. And ready to just joke around but be serious about this conversation and just have fun tonight.
Right. All right, then.
All right.
So Chassie.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
My name is Chastity Chandler. I am a certified sex therapist in the state of Florida. And so I specialize in the LGBTQ plus population as well as couples. And I like helping people boss up from the bedroom to the boardroom. Yeah.
All right, then.
All right.
Bedroom to the boardroom. What do you do in the boardroom?
Yes. We got to be sexy in the boardroom, too.
Yes. Yes.
Is that like a champagne room?
Let me build it and they shall come.
Well, look, we did get everybody's questions and we have them laid out. And so what we're going to do it a little bit differently this time. We're going to give everybody a chance to answer these questions so you can hear from everybody, ask the particular person about their response, and we'll just go from there. Everybody is free to ask what you want, participate like you need, and just have fun with it. So let's go ahead and get started with that.
Yes.
So Dr. Monica, we're going to start with you. Is that okay, love?
That is perfectly fine.
Okay. So the question reads, what are the most important things to consider when it comes to entering consensual non-monogamy in an existing relationship?
So that is a great question. And I think there are a couple of important things that you should absolutely consider when you are in a close relationship and you're considering opening that relationship up. The first and foremost thing I think you need to think about as a couple, and I'm assuming that we're talking about a couple, who are talking about this, is communication. How open and honest is your communication presently? And are you able to have open and honest communication about what you really want? Because some of the questions that you need to be asking yourselves, yourself individually and also each other, might yield some difficult answers. So I think it's important to kind of discuss, what are your hopes? Like, what are you hoping to get out of opening up the relationship? Are you looking for multiple loving connections with other people? Are you looking for some excitement every once in a while? You just try to spice it up a little bit, or maybe you're just looking for some alternative or different types of sexual experiences or encounters than you currently get with your partner. Or maybe it has nothing to do with sex. Maybe you're looking for companionship in some way that has a deeper meaning to it. Maybe you enjoy doing things that your partner doesn't enjoy doing, and you want to, build a bond with someone along those realms. So lots of questions that you really should be considering at this point. What are your hard and soft limits as individuals and as couples? Do you want to date together? Do you want to date separately? There are lots of, really, I think it's important to communicate because there are so many questions and dynamics that you want to be thinking about, you want to be asking each other about when you're thinking about opening up the relationship. So once you kind of start sorting out some of the answers to these types of questions, I think another next important thing to consider is whether or not you feel comfortable in that dynamic advocating for your wants and needs, and being willing to come up with mutually agreeable compromises, because there are inevitably going to be things that you want, or that you went into this thinking, okay, this is what I want out of this. I want to be able to, go out and have sex with multiple people, or I want to have a loving bond or connection with another person. And maybe your partner doesn't want that. Maybe your ideas or your vision of what opening up the relationship looks like are different. And so it keeps coming back to communication, and how well are you both able to communicate about that in a safe way? And then just kind of figuring out how you're going to proceed from there with compromise, with coming up with mutually agreeable and satisfying solutions.
Beautiful.
Right.
So let me see if anybody has any comments or questions. I think we're still kind of checking in and just being in awe at all the beautiful faces on here.
This is some beautiful shades of melanin, isn't it?
It is.
It is lovely. You have all types of variety, geographical areas, ages, proclivities.
Indeed.
Yes.
So welcome, Casio, from Let's Talk About Sex, and also Athena. Thank you for coming on over. What's going on, Ashley? Good to see you again. And Ashley asked a question. He says, can you speak more about hard and soft limits and what that looks like within the context of a Dom sub relationship?
Ooh. So is that question directed at me, or should we go to Ruby?
Well, you mentioned hard and soft limits. Yes. I'm not sure how you define hard and soft limits.
Sure. So I define hard and soft limits as, so soft limit is something that maybe you haven't tried yet, you're not sure if you like it yet, but you might be open to it, you might be interested in it. Some people consider, threesomes or something that seems exciting, but maybe you haven't tried it before, as a soft limit. Maybe you're not quite there yet, but you're working up to it, you want to try it, you're interested in it, but you haven't ruled it out. Versus a hard limit, which is more so those things where it's like, oh, hell no, I'm not doing that. That's off the table. A lot of people consider things, when we're talking about sexually, A lot of people consider anal sex might be a hard limit. Like, I don't want nothing coming towards the back door. That's a hard limit. So it's just a way of distinguishing between things that maybe you haven't tried or that are new or novel to you and you might be interested in it, versus things that you already know for sure are off the table.
Okay,
Thank you.
that's fantastic. Yeah.
So we're gonna graciously move on to the second question. We're gonna try to keep it rolling so we can get to all the questions for the night. Let's see what we have here, and this one goes to Ruby.
Yes.
So the question asks, what should you do if your partner isn't open to the poly dynamic you prefer?
Yes, that is a interesting question, because there's so many factors to consider, right? Number one, is this a new or established relationship? That's the first question. Number two is, just because one is polyamorous, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be one size fits all, right? Because there is this assumption, because I am poly, for example, that I will be okay in a hierarchical relationship. That dynamic is not going to work for me, because that is not aligned with my values, my beliefs, etc. And so the should do is more about negotiation, discussing and wanting to understand, what is the reason that my partner wants to be in this dynamic? Is this dynamic something that is a part of who they are? Am I able to live? I may not agree necessarily all the way, but am I able to live with this choice that my partner makes? Because personal choice, autonomy, and consent is imperative in polyamorous relationships. So if you feel that you're being coerced into a situation that you don't want to be in, that is a red flag. So make sure that you're talking to your partner and you're setting your boundaries and saying, okay, this is who I am. I love and I respect you, but this may not be something that I can live within, And so there's so many factors to consider there. But the first thing is consent and negotiation, and making sure you're not coerced into something that you don't want to be in.
Thank you, Ruby. And let me look at some of these questions. Ashley tells us, thank you for answering that question. Athena asked, what relationship? And so we're really looking at the different dynamics of poly right now. And so if you have any other questions, Athena, let us know, and we'll try to dive into that more specifically. But we're going to go ahead and move on to the next question. We don't have anything for right now. But this one is for you, Chaz. And it reads, do you feel V's can be long-lasting and successful?
What is a V first?
All right. That's what I'm going to get. So a V.
Let's get that
A
understanding.
V is a specific poly dynamic. And so basically just think of a V. There's a pivot person or a pivot partner right here in the middle. And that partner is typically in a relationship with both of the partners on the ends. So let's say, let's use all of us for example. Let's say I was the pivot partner, and let's say Dr. Monica and Ruby were my partners. And so it doesn't mean that Dr. Monica and Ruby are partners together. that they are sexually involved, are in a relationship together. It just simply means that they are in a relationship with me. And so I have heard stories of, and within research, I do know that those can be long lasting and successful. A lot of times people try to force a V into what we call a triad and try to make the other two partners also be in a relationship and be romantically involved. And typically that does not work if those two people are not romantically, physically, sexually attracted to one another. So what I say could help with the long lasting B is that there's a mutual respect for all relationships that are involved. Also that they have agreed upon agreements. They know how they want the relationship to look, so it works out for everybody. I personally think that communication, open communication between the other two partners of the V is essential as well. So we don't have what they call triangular communication, which would be like Ruby don't want to talk to Dr. Monica because she don't like Dr. Monica. And so Ruby will complain to me about Dr. Monica, and then Dr. Monica is complaining to me about Ruby, instead of Ruby and Dr. Monica sitting down and having an adult conversation, whether I am or am not involved. So I think that can be long lasting. I think they can be successful. I think a polyamorous relationship is just like any other relationship. Choose your partners wisely. I think a V will not be successful if one of the partners is not, I want to say, harmonious, is not a game player, um, or just doesn't want to be in a polyamorous relationship. So sometimes people end up in a V because they're in a relationship with somebody. Let's say like Dr. Monica really loved me, but I really loved Ruby and I wanted us all to be in this relationship. And Dr. Monica did it like knowing she didn't really want to do it, and so it may actually impact the successfulness of the relationship, if that makes sense. So I think choosing your partners wisely, knowing what you want, what you need, and everybody having a voice for what they want and what they need, and negotiating each other's needs, I think it can be successful and long lasting. And also, just because you're in a V does not mean that you guys don't have additional partners as well. So it can be branched off. Ruby can have her own partner. Dr. Monica can have her own partner, and I may have a whole nother set of partners. So it could be as small or as large as all involved agree upon. So yeah.
Thank you for that, Chaz. And let's see what we have down here. Okay. Some discussion between participants. Beautiful. We love it. Keep the questions coming. We're going to move on to the next one, okay? And It looks like the homie is going to be here in a little bit, so we're going to skip to me. And this question reads, I don't think I'm quite ready for an open relationship or CNM, consensual non-monogamous relationship. How can I ethically transition to something monogamous? And so looking at that question, I'm looking at a few things there. Somebody has to have an understanding of what an open relationship is, which can mean a number of things. Have to understand what a consensual non-monogamy relationship looks like, which can be considered an umbrella for a different number of relationships, whether you're swinging, poly, monogamous, so on and so forth. And then ethically, let's put a big red circle around ethically. And those are those moral actions, right? I'm just going to simply define it as that. So when you want to transition from wherever you are to possibly a monogamous relationship or something open, I would suggest that you really spend time appreciating self-discovery, understanding the journey as to what you're going through, what you've been through, and where you're trying to go, so that you can favorably fit in whatever you're going to fit in with your partner. Oftentimes, I've seen relationships where one partner is in the middle of self-discovery, trying to understand his or herself in this sexual situation, and the partner and their other partner is probably just, that one-trick pony, the monogamous situation, and they're kind of dragging them a little bit, and that is not necessarily fair. And then sometimes it is that the partner is okay with, I consider being dragged, and I know that's not fair of me to say that, but I really want you, if you really want to transition into a consensual or CNM situation, really focus on the self-discovery and always understand that consent needs to always be on the table with whatever y'all do. Consent does not ever leave the table. So just try to look and focus on two steps: self-discovery and remaining, and always understanding that consent will always and have to remain on the table as you go on with your experiences and enjoying the ride. And so you also have to understand what monogamous is. And so if you don't understand that, try to look at Dan Savage. He gives a lot of great information on what monogamous is. I personally am a person that believes in monogamous, because I don't believe in monogamy, and I'm not poly either, right? I'm not polyamory, but monogamous is where I kind of reside. Well, not kind of reside, that's where I'm at. So when I went from being monogamous to being monogamish, I had to make sure I understood my journey and understood that whenever I dated women, I let them know this is what I like sexually, or this is where I am with my relationships, so that there was that understanding in the transition. And those are some of the things I just suggest that you do in your transition, and just enjoy the ride. So,
may I add something to that?
yes, please do.
You know, I love these questions, whomever posed them or created them, because they are actually real life questions.
Yes, they are.
Right. You know, because when a client walks into my office, even in my first relationship, I wasn't ready. I just learned about this concept and it was kind of discombobulated. I'm like, oh, what does all of this mean? You know, this, you know, that white people shit. You know, I don't do all of that, right?
This ain't flat, folks.
You know, it wasn't necessarily something that was in my wheelhouse. And so I know for me, a big piece, even when I'm in a relationship with someone and I'm asking them to go someplace they may not be familiar with or quite ready for, is for me to kind of take a couple of steps backwards and meet them where they're at, and we come and do this together, you know, because we are in power positions within our relationships. For example, I love that Chastity put me, Monica, and her in a relationship, right? So
let the dude out of it.
I want to stay with Monica and Chastity, and they're going in a direction that I may not agree with and I'm not ready for, but I will compromise myself, right, to stay with them. And so as a partner in that power position, ethically, you know, I take a look at, is my partner being authentic? Because not only is the person asking for consent, the person giving consent, or just both people are responsible for checking to make sure that there's authenticity there. You know, to me, that's a big piece of ethical non-monogamy that we don't talk about, especially when couples are opening up and one is not as much of a fan as the other. Did that make sense?
It does. I also want to put, I don't think I defined monogamish, and so I just get on rants. I just start talking. But you know, you'll have your typical let's just say 2-person relationship, right? Same sex or heterosexual sexual relationship. And as I tend to view it, and also as Dan Savage affectionately defines it, you know, what's normal about people in our sexual selves is sometimes we are going to want to fuck somebody else, even though we're in a marriage or in a relationship. And monogamish allows you to either romantically or emotionally lend yourself and all your great self to somebody else, and you can still come back to your base relationship. And you can do that from time to time. Now, how you do that just depends on your agreement with your significant other or your base, right? But from time to time, my woman can go out and romantically or emotionally develop and grow and come back, and we'll be great together. But it's really particularly just us two. But from time to time, we'll branch out and we'll see somebody else. And that's not typically a relationship. It's probably just something sexual, or probably we're just going to go to the movies and I don't know, have popcorn or whatever it is it's going to be. But then we come back to each other. It just depends on your agreement. It may be a travel agreement. It may be a one-night stand agreement, or whatever it is. But that's just typically how a monogamish thing goes. It's not monogamy, but it's not poly. So
someone's in love with you.
Thank you, Athena. Love you too, love. Love you too. Let's see. Let's answer this question. Brian Reveals says, hold on, let's see here. He says, it seems as if more people are leaning towards CNM relationships and it's growing. Do you think monogamy is on its way out? I don't think monogamy is on its way out. It's a staple. It's pretty much left its thing on society. But what I love about society right now is we understand that the one trick pony is not all that we have to offer to be our sexual selves. And with that, we can be monogamous or poly. And as we grow sexually, we can find ourselves and still have all this life and love. And so I think monogamy is here to stay, but people are sliding over for other things. And I think, like I said, the last show is 1 out of every 5 people have been in a CNM situation. So it's people are ready to talk and be in about this life. So no, I don't think monogamy is on its way out.
But if we can I say something real quick? But if we also think about the people that have been in non-consensual relationships, like the people that didn't know that their partner was seeing somebody else or sleeping with somebody else, whether that be emotionally or physically. So I don't think monogamy is on the out. I think people just know they have another option now. Like people are learning more and more that default relationship or love style is just not all that there is out there. So there are alternative ways to, meet those needs per se.
Thank you, sir, for that question. And Ashley asks a travel agreement. Beautiful question. So in a monogamous situation, if let's say me and Ruby are in a relationship and
I'm just having all of these.
Ruby winning today.
I know, right?
Right now.
Yes, I own being a slut. Yes.
Hey.
So
My mama don't say that.
You said what, baby? So me and Ruby in a relationship and business is booming. And so me and Ruby like sex and we don't want to miss out. So we have that conversation. Look, I want to have sex, but I got this conference. I'm doing Poly LA now. It's no longer, I'm doing Poly Dallas and I'm doing Poly LA. And I have a friend out there that I typically enjoy having sex with. And she and I are just going to have that heart to heart where we're going to understand, this is just part of Ruby. This is not her trying to hurt Greg's feelings. This is not her trying to do any damage in any way, shape, fashion, or form. This is a part of her life. And we want to make sure that we continue to have our base relationship just between us two. So whenever she travels to LA or wherever she travels, somewhere, I would probably more than likely want to do that too. I want to enjoy travel sex too, so I'm probably going to want to do that too. I love egalitarian relationships, and so I love the equality and all of that, right? So I'm probably going to want to do it too. But that's not everybody. Somebody might just feel like whenever she travels, she can do it. But I'm okay with you doing that, and I'm just going to be happy with what we do right here, right now. And so that's kind of what a travel agreement kind of looks like, but it's different for everybody. But that's a great question, Ashley. Athena says, I want Ruby to. Ruby, you the hotness right now.
Oh.
All right, we're going to continue some of these questions. Let's see here.
Yeah.
Ruby, we're back to you.
Yes. Okay.
So are exes a good option for additional partners? Why or why not?
Well, I needed a little explanation on that question. So
I got some background for you if you need the expert.
Yes.
All right. So say for instance, you are looking to begin a polyamorous relationship or open up your relationship. You have an ex that maybe you had an amazing relationship with. Everything was good. Maybe just the timing was off when you guys were together. Is it okay to consider that partner to be a part of the relationship that you're building with the new partner?
Right. Ooh, that's a good question. Oh my. See, that is so much going on there, right? Because
we didn't say it was going to be easy. We said it was going to be juicy.
Right. And
what if that one partner got that hammer? You just don't want, you gotta, woof.
That's what I was thinking. Will nostalgia come back and take over everything, right? Because that door is open again. It just, to me, it depends on the individual, right? And it depends on the situation. Is it a good idea? In polyamory, the boundaries have come down in many ways around the usual expectations, of going backwards. Once I break up with someone, I don't go back, that type of mentality. But it depends on the person. It depends on the relationship with the ex. I can see some red flags that could possibly go off because that ex may not be polyamorous. You may not have had a polyamorous relationship with them. It may have been monogamous. And, where are everyone's intentions? Because the intention is, I just want to start this relationship and rekindle this because I miss it and maybe it will be different this time. But is that the intention of the other person? And then you have to look at the impact, the impact to your current relationship, or, the impact to your experience of being newly open and exploring this. Do you want to bring that other experience into it and confuse what you're attempting to do? So there's a whole lot of factors to consider. I'm not going to say one is right and one is wrong. It's just different. And do a risk assessment of your decisions in this. Consider everything that you may be hitting and impacting, and be careful. I love what I think Chastity said earlier, which is check your partners carefully. Make sure they meet the criteria and make sure you're in position to see clearly, if going back to that ex is a good idea. There's a reason they're ex. So that's it.
Yeah.
Did that answer the question, Chastity?
I got
it is.
from Ashley says, I love that Ruby said on mine.
I'm just saying, when I was talking to people about, divorce, because I was writing the book Sex After Divorce, and people were saying like they would get back with their ex-husbands or ex-wives because things were good. They were good people. There was nothing wrong. It just was timing or such and such was off. So I'm just asking, is, for some people, having that ex in play is somebody that they're comfortable with. So maybe it's somebody that, especially if they have, like, let's say, for instance, they have sexual performance issues in front of new people, or that kind of thing. If they're already sexually comfortable with the ex, then it kind of brings about a level of not having to overcome that anxiety or work through those problems and issues. But on the other hand, if it was a toxic and unhealthy relationship, bringing the ex in, I would say maybe is not the healthiest option. But if it was a healthy relationship and the relationship is still good between you and the ex, is that an unhealthy situation? Us as therapists, we probably have to know all these other factors and all this other stuff to really determine whether it's a healthy or unhealthy situation. But just in general, is picking an ex. Look, Dr. Monica over there ready.
I'm an advocate for exes.
Right.
But yeah, I agree with what everyone is saying. Just, it's an individual thing. You have to make sure that it's a healthy dynamic and that you fully understand the reasons that you are considering this particular person or this particular ex. Because, like, for me personally, a lot of my exes, it was more so about timing and just things like that, as opposed to them not being like amazing people. And so they are individuals that have, cycled through my polycules at various points in my life, and probably will continue to as I, move forward in my life.
Yeah, and I think something that's really important is that you said partner. So for me, when I see the word partner, that is not just a hookup. That is just not, I want you to knock the dust off of it real quick. That's more of, let me establish a relationship with you. So my definition of partner is really deep, you know. Hi, Renee. Look at
We have to welcome Sam. Hey, Renee, how you doing, love?
Fine. How y'all doing?
Good.
Good.
So we were just basically kicking off questions and responding to people who are interacting and whatnot. So I think the last person was Ruby to answer the question. You ready to fill in some questions, Renell? You wanna do one more before we get to you?
No, I'm good. I'm ready.
Hey.
You know, I stay ready. Come on.
More ready.
All right.
All right. So Renell, this one's for you. It reads, should me and my partner go to therapy after an affair and give time to heal before opening our relationship?
Should me and my partner go to therapy after an affair? I feel like I'm going to say it's a yes. And before we even go outside the relationship, it's so many levels to that. We can't, because you coming in because of something, and we gotta grow through it. We gotta educate ourselves. We gotta release. We gotta get on the same page before we even go to that other one. It's just not that easy. Right. So I'm going to say yes, because opening your relationship is more than just I'm going to go and have a sex with somebody today. Even that needs to be contracted. And if you don't have a good foundation now, you're not going to be able to do that. So right. I'm going to say for that question, should me and my partner go to therapy after an affair and give time to heal before opening our marriage? I'm going to say yes.
Beautiful.
Excellent. Perfect.
Let's see here.
Do you find that, Renell, when somebody wants to do that, they're trying to fix it with another person, maybe? Fix the relationship? I
feel that it depends on who suggests it. It could be powerful or powerless. You know, he or she is going to do it anyway, so we might as well. Right?
Yes. Yeah.
Or powerful that I do all I need to do. I take care of you. I should be allowed to.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So either dynamic still needs a damn conversation.
Right on.
So no matter what, we have to get the conversation started. I love to instigate conversations. We have to start the conversation, and you can never assume. So yes.
We have a question in. The question is from Athena. She asks, if one of the partners just isn't attracted to the other sexually, I guess would poly be a benefit? If one of the partners,
I responded to her question.
Oh, you did? Okay, I'm sorry about that. I'm just not seeing.
Yeah, it's okay. No. You good. What I said was absolutely not everyone has to be emotionally or sexually involved. Remember, in the V that I described with me, Dr. Monica, and Ruby, Dr. Monica and Ruby were not sexually or emotionally involved with each other. They were just sexually and emotionally involved with me. So we could definitely be a happy-go-lucky poly couple in that manner, even if they did not find each other like sexually attracted or emotionally, grew emotionally, etc. Now, if they did, then we might all agree to make this a triad then, where we're all in relationships, meaning I'm in a relationship with Dr. Monica, Dr. Monica's in a relationship with Ruby, Ruby's in a relationship with me, and vice versa. Does that make sense? Like everybody would be in relationship with everybody. So like they might go on dates with them by themselves. I might take both of them out together. It can be all types of dynamics. But if the two of them are not sexually or emotionally connected or involved, then it wouldn't be a triad, but it would still definitely be poly, because remember, poly is just to love more than one. And so if they both love me and I love them, then we poly.
Yeah.
Simply put.
Well, ain't nobody loving me over here. I'm feeling left out. So we're gonna go ahead and go on to the next question. Dr. M, it's for you.
Yes.
Let's see here.
Athena offered a clarifying thing. Maybe Dr. M can answer that too. She offered clarification on her question.
Okay, let's look at that. She says, "No, I mean the married couple are sexually attached to each other.
Are not sexually attracted to each other." I think that's what she meant.
Okay. I get it. Not head
Yeah.
nod. Yeah.
I mean, I think in that case too, it can be. I mean, it's still similar in some ways to what Chastity was saying as well. Like, I think, you know, even in a marriage, if you get to a place to where, you know, the sexual attraction is fading, or, you know, it's just not where it used to be. I think as long as you are able to have open and honest dialogue and conversation with each other about it, poly could be an option. As someone who leans more towards like solo poly and relationship anarchy, I don't personally believe that all relationships need to have any particular components to be valuable or to be meaningful or to be, you know, loving or caring or what have you. So I feel like members of a marriage could absolutely decide to open up their marriage and have relationships outside of the marriage to fulfill sexual desires or needs that maybe have cooled off in their relationship or have cooled off in the marriage. As long as everybody's on the same page and is consenting and there's no coercion, there's no manipulation going on with those dynamics, I think poly is absolutely a reasonable solution or option to consider.
And I'm going to where Dr. M, this is for you.
Mm-hmm.
Have you guys dealt with jealousy within your poly relationships?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a common misnomer that, you know, in order to be quote unquote suitable for consensual non-monogamy, polyamory, or the like, that you have to be a person who doesn't experience jealousy. And I think that is a myth that, you know, lots of us are, you know, constantly try to dispel, and make sure that folks know jealousy is a normal emotion that most people experience. There's nothing wrong with jealousy. There's nothing inherently wrong with experiencing jealousy. I think for me personally, one of the things that I like to do that's important for me to do if I find myself in a place where I am feeling jealous about what's going on with my partner and my metas or, you know, their other partners, I like to take a step back and sit with myself and really get curious about where that emotion is coming from. Like, what is triggering that? What's underneath that jealousy? Because it can be easy to focus on, you know, say for example, my partner has a new girlfriend and they're spending all this time together, and all of a sudden I feel left out and I feel like, oh, well, damn, you know, they got this thing going on. I feel like, you know, the third wheel over here, I'm not getting as much attention as I used to get. They've got their, you know, nice NRE, new relationship energy going on, and I'm feeling lonely and all these other things. So, you know, it becomes a situation where I'm like questioning, okay, well, do they even care about me anymore? Like, what about me? You know? And so when I get to that place, or if I get to that place, it becomes important to take a step back and really figure out where that emotion is coming from. Is this really about my partner spending time with this other person? For me, usually the answer is no. It's usually never about my partner and that other person, because I am a person, I wholeheartedly believe in polyamory and non-monogamy. So I, at the core of it, don't have an issue with them spending time with other people. What it might be highlighting for me is that maybe me and my partner aren't getting as much quality time as we used to get, or maybe I'm yearning to, you know, do some fun activities. Maybe they going out doing all this fun stuff and we're not going out doing anything anymore. So it might actually just be about my relationship with my partner, and it may be something that I could, you know, reasonably go to my partner and say, hey, you know, I'd like to spend some more time together. Like, can we do this, or can we negotiate, you know, some other ways for me to get my needs met if it comes down to, something that I feel like is lacking in our relationship. So for me personally, I like to try and sit with myself. I really, really make it a point not to act on those emotions with any type of immediacy, because in the past when I've done that, it tends to blow up in your face. It tends to turn out into a hot ass mess and causes a lot more drama than is worth. And so, it's definitely taken growth, but over the years, I've definitely gotten to a place to where, for the most part, I'm able to deal with my jealousy without even needing to involve my partner. Because most of the times it's not about my partner. It's about some issue that's going on with me, or what's happening underneath the surface. So that's what happens for me. What about other folks?
Ditto.
Yeah, I would have to. I'm not in a poly relationship. If I was, I would have to imagine. It's all about, again. I always preach self-discovery. Understanding yourself and your journey, so that you can do away with all those nasty feelings, those nasty insecurities that can just make your relationship unhealthy in a number of ways, toxic in a number of ways. So, yes. So I say that to say I agree.
Right. But real quick, I think that jealousy is just like anger. I don't think anger is a natural emotion. It's not anger that ends up being healthy or unhealthy. It's how you manage or act upon feeling angry. So I think jealousy should be looked at the same way. I don't want to put this negative connotation to jealousy, because I'm gonna tell you, honey, I don't care how open you are. When your boo for the first time is over there with they boo, you gonna feel some type of way. If you really care about that person and that's your first time being exposed to that, you gonna feel some type of way. Now, whether you act on it outwardly or verbalize it, that's a whole nother thing. So I like what Dr. Monica said about sitting with herself and kind of processing that herself. Everybody want to be poly, but it's a whole nother ball game when you're in the same room,
The process.
breathing the same air, feeling the same energy as everybody else in the room. That's all I'm saying.
Yes. Everybody want to be poly till it's time to really be poly.
Theory
man.
and practice are two different things, right? Yeah. Theory and practice.
All right. Let's see who we got up next. And we have Renelle. And the question reads, is it healthy to seek what you're not getting or fulfill within your relationship from others?
The healthy seek from no. I know.
I love it.
Okay, so first
again, that's all they need to know.
No
shit.
No shit. But I'm a piggyback on what everybody else is saying too. It goes again for to get to know and understand yourself. Why do we feel so much that our partner has to fulfill these things? And sometimes we not having communicated to them what it is, and sometimes we don't know ourselves. So I'm going to say, like everybody just said before, is check in with yourself and feel, are you setting your partner up for failure? Why do you feel like since they not doing it, somebody else is doing it? They should be doing it. Why do you feel so empowered, and why haven't you talked to your partner about this? So I'm gonna ask you to check in with yourself and see first what you need. I'm gonna ask you to articulate this to your partner. Give them a chance. Don't even assume, right? And if it's something that they can't do, what we talking about today? Conversate about it and contract about it. It's all about communication and how you present it with your partner. Never assume they won't give it to you. And then also ask why they may not be giving it to you. Maybe because they don't feel safe or secure to even be intimate with you. Maybe they don't like your facial expression when you ask them a question, so they're not even coming to you, right? So I'm going to say it's not healthy to hold it in, and it's not healthy to go outside. I'm good?
Yes. Absolutely.
Moving right along. Absolutely. We have about 8 more minutes until we're going to open it up. Are we still going to just open it up for the last 30 minutes for questioning, or we're going to just move right through?
Let's try to get through the questions, but we also have a question from LaShawn, and I want to make sure that we answer the question from LaShawn.
Okay,
I think I happen to know everybody's answer to this, and I think we all are authentic and open enough to answer that. So we're gonna answer your question, LaShawn.
Okay.
Oh, never mind.
Bam.
The MC does it.
You know,
Go
we're gonna
on,
put it on
Black Dog.
blast so we can
Go
all know
on,
what the hell
Black
we
Dog.
talking
Go on, Black Dog.
about. The question reads, are you all open? If that's too personal, please pardon me. Are we open as far as open relationships or to have sex with number different genders, or what do we actually?
That was
Yes, and
that
yes.
was in response to us all being in a relationship. That example, I think. So
Okay.
I think that they're curious to know where we are, what is our relationship preference and status. Let's just
Okay.
tell the people.
Okay.
Just tell the people.
I am a straight black man, no male experiences, don't want any male experiences. I am open to having sex, vaginally if whoever I'm in a partnership with and she wants to explore. I was just having this conversation in the other group. If she wants to play with my anus or whatever like that, that's cool.
Ooh, we
That's
getting
cool.
good.
That's it. I'm trusting her.
Keep it real.
Listen, I ain't
Okay.
finna let you lay up next to my asshole and you just tear that shit up and then you gone. I never see your ass again.
Come through.
That's how we getting down in 2020, 2021, or wherever else. But in
All
a
right.
trusting situation, I'm okay with that.
All right. And you are our resident monogamish person.
Correct.
Okay. Ruby, you next.
I am very poly, very queer, and yeah, I'm polyamorous. Yes, I speak from knowledge base and I speak from experience.
Okay.
And I'm in a
Dr. M.
relationship with Dr. M, Chastity, Boris, and now Renee.
See,
And
that's how
also,
rumors get started.
and also Athena. Athena.
Girl, I heard you was fucking everybody on that.
See, this is the prime example of that example of that black men don't
Don't cheat.
don't cheat movement. Because we didn't even say, you didn't ask me yes, no, or maybe. You know what I'm saying? We didn't. You remember back in the day when we did a yes, no,
Yeah,
maybe, there was no gray area. Everybody knew if there was a
yeah.
relationship. All right, Dr. Monica.
Yes, I am very queer and very poly. I do not engage sexually or romantically with cishet men. Everybody else is open. But also, I am a novice kinkster, so learning about BDSM dynamics, and that's also kind of a part of an evolving part of my identity. And also more specifically, my love style trends towards solo polyamory, and relationship anarchy. So it's a little bit more specific under the umbrella of non-monogamy, in that I'm not generally interested in joining my life in any type of traditional way with other folks. So I'm not interested in like cohabitation, joint finances, marriage, kids, all that good jazz. I'm more interested in just meeting people who have good energy and allowing the relationship and the energy to organically progress into whatever it's going to be without any expectations or prescribed ideals around what it has to be.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
You up, Renee?
Oh, well, hey. So
Listen,
I am.
hold on.
Huh?
Listen, feedback. Y'all don't hear it? Okay.
Yeah. Everybody down. Hey, it's Renee. I'm very hetero. I am monogamous. One person at a time. I am open to exploring with my partner. Strictly dickly. Whatever you want to do. So I believe in monogamy and that.
I love you, Renelle.
I just want to point out though, we have 5 people here, and 1 out of the 5 people in here is not in a CNM type of a situation. So we're kind of reversing the whole. I don't know. I just thought that was a little funny. But anyway.
Yeah.
you got it, Taz. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So historically I have been a serial monogamous. I would say over the last 2 years that has changed for me. I was in what I thought was a monogamous relationship that I actually later agreed to open up, and I am currently polyamorous. And so I am in the new phases and stages of forming what that will look like for me and Bay. So that's where I am. I am cisgender, meaning I am a female, identify as a female. I am heterosexual, but I'm not close to having a romantic relationship with a woman. I think if I connect with a woman emotionally, and energy wise, in a spiritual way, I think that I could be in a relationship with a woman, although that's not my preference.
LaShawn, does that satisfy the question? Give LaShawn some time to respond.
Okay.
And contrary to belief, we're not in a relationship with each other. So
Says who?
listen, we're preaching about communication and we're preaching about consent. And so you got to ask people, can they be in a relationship with you?
Absolutely.
Do they want to be in a relationship with you? We ain't talked about none of those details.
Okay. That, let's get to that maybe tonight if we can. But let's see.
Okay.
So are we about to open it up?
We have a question for Chaz, and then myself, and then back to Dr. M. What would y'all like to do? Do that, and then open it up, or you want to open it up now and just kind of randomly just open it up?
Open it up, baby.
And randomly, I guess, pick a question you may want to answer.
Bust it open.
I was about to say that could have gone so many ways. Well, so everybody who's commenting, if you have any questions, we're just giving you the opportunity to go ahead and ask more questions, and we're just going to answer them the best way we can and just kind of go from there. You got a question?
So Nikki B wants us to make sure that we address how people are forced into being poly, or that poly is the one way, and that also to address the fact that people have no interest in building, connecting business, children, or households. So to me, this is a myth question. So I love these. So I want to make sure we lend that question to the resident consensual non-monogamous and poly folk, and then if the rest of us care to chime in on that, definitely do so.
So what's the question?
I think it was a statement, and that's probably how I missed that. Let me see here.
They're basically saying, can we address how some people feel like they're being forced into polyamory, and also how some people are in it not really interested in building or connecting and doing that kind of thing.
Okay. So
people are forced into it. Yeah. I guess she got it. For me, she got to give me an example of how you are
forced.
How is queer defined? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So she can go back on there. She can let's Nikki,
answer
can you come back?
Now.
Yeah, let's answer. Nikki, let us know what you mean by force.
Nikki said no.
Okay then. Okay, Nikki. Not forced into it.
I know Nikki. She's cool. Let's see here.
We ain't coming for. We just want to know.
Oh, forced to believe it's one way. Forced to believe polyamory is only done one way.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Yeah.
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 Okay.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying, Nikki. I'll turn it over to Dr. M.
Yes. So, I think it was mentioned earlier. Maybe it was by you, Ruby, also, that there's no right or wrong way to be polyamorous or consensually non-monogamous. And Chassie, you were also talking about the multiple ways that it could branch out into different types of dynamics when you were talking about particularly about the V dynamic. But I think that's one of the reasons that you really diving into CNM and polyamory without doing some level of homework, doing some level of research, having some important conversations about what you're interested in doing. I think it's probably going to yield a lot of headache and issues for you, because there is no one way. Even when we're talking amongst other sex therapists and other people who practice consensual non-monogamy, there's variance in how we all do things. We could both be talking about monogamish, or we could both be talking about or using the term poly, but we may practice it very different ways. And that, I mean, that's even obvious, that might be obvious in terms of how I practice, because I mentioned the solo polyamory piece and the relationship anarchy, which are more, aligned with how I believe and how I practice. But, some people, when we think of poly, some people may automatically think of hierarchies. Whereas I'm someone who, do not do hierarchies at all on any level. And so even though we're using the same terminology, it really becomes important to get back to that communication piece where you're asking and you're clarifying, well, what does this mean to you? How do you want to practice? How are you practicing? And does that align, with the people that you're attempting to build connection with? Because it may not. You may be using the same terms and have very different meanings. So that becomes important, but there are absolutely many different ways to practice poly, which we can't, we could spend this whole time just talking about all the different ways that could look. So that's not really a good use of our time. But I would say there's a lot of research and educational material out there. One of the websites that I use, it has a really expansive poly glossary. It's from the More Than Two website. They have a really expansive glossary that goes over all kinds of terms. Lord, some of that stuff I don't even know. I don't even know everything that's in there. But it's a good reference point. It's a good way to start. A lot of people, don't necessarily want to be labeled, or maybe aren't interested in using labels, and that's okay. But sometimes language and labels can be important just to give us the nomenclature and the just a foundational point to start with asking, deeper questions about how we want to practice. And then as for the second piece of that, how addressing, people who don't want to, necessarily have businesses or children or households. I was also mentioning that with just sort of how I practice. I've been consensually non-monogamous for over 13 years now, and my journey has evolved a lot, and it looks very different today than it did before. Because I used to be married, I used to have joint finances, have a house, and have these things that are more traditional. I used to be in a hierarchical relationship where my partner was my primary partner. Those are all things that no longer align with, how I practice. And so now, I'm not interested in having those kinds of joint or traditional sort of building blocks that you think of when you think of a relationship and how it progresses. That's not necessarily a part of how I practice poly. And getting to the heart of that really just means having those conversations with the people that you're interested in or that you're trying to connect with.
Right. And I want to emphasize something, that polyamory, I'm talking about polyamory specifically, is its own standalone relationship dynamic. We like to have polyamory and we like to have monogamy, and we like to do this compare and contrast, and it does both a disservice. You know, I think monogamy is a very viable relationship dynamic for people with values and beliefs that work well within that dynamic. And I think polyamory is a very viable, beautiful relationship dynamic that works for people with the values and beliefs, right? And so I think that idea of this holy grail way of looking at relationships seep into the polyamory community, and people say, you're not doing good poly, whatever the fuck that means, right? I did an entire 2 blogs about what good poly is doing to our community, because we start to beat each other up about how we are living, loving, and being within our relationships. And you may not agree, you know, it may not be how you see consent to work, but you don't know what that relationship dynamic is with those people, right? And so I think us allowing people to breathe and be within relationships and not necessarily want to share households or want to, you know, have children together, that is okay.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that they're any less polyamorous than someone else, you know? And so that to me is an issue that I'm glad you brought up.
Yes.
Thank you.
This next question, we have, I think, about 2 or 3. One is asking about queer, and another one is asking about navigating a relationship with a person that's been molested. How do you get into asking them questions about that and their sexuality? So I'm just going to toss it up. What do we want to do? We want to do the queer first or the relationship question first?
I could do for me, there's there's a gender queer, and then there's the sexual expression queer. This is me personally and my belief systems. And to me, being queer is not only a way to present my fluidities sexually. Additionally, it's a political statement. You know, it is an act of agitation, activism, and advocacy for sex positivity. Additionally, liberation from the white man. But that's, for me, is what queerness is. I prescribe to a Black queerness. You know, Audre Lorde is my right. So for me, that's it.
Beautiful. And for people asking and wondering what queer is, I wonder, what is your confusion about it? Is it their sexuality, how they appear, how they move and shake? I'm wondering, where are you getting confused at? Where are you not comfortable with having that conversation with somebody who identifies as queer, or if you just don't know if somebody identifies as queer? I wonder what is your question and more in depth about what queer is?
We waiting for them to say something?
And I'm going to go on to the next question while they do that. So
Okay.
just to keep it moving. So sorry, I'm a little. Here we go.
Oh, one of the thing is, does queer
We also
mean you
have a
like
few
either
other
sex?
questions that were sent in to me, but we'll wait and see if we have
What'd
time.
you say, Renelle?
Does queer, okay, so does queer, when we hear is queer, does queer mean that you like either sex? You swing, or what does it? I think that's one of the questions.
Oh, for me, my queerness is manifested in that I have a leaning towards femme women, and so have I partaked of dick? Yes, I have. not in the last lot of years, but I don't date cis men anymore.
Okay.
Thank you, Ruby. We're going to move on to the next question. Or unless, Chaz, were you about to present some of yours?
My bad, y'all. I'm over here moving between two audios, so I can't hear Renell or Dr. M on my phone. So if I'm talking over you like I just did, sis, I'm so sorry. I couldn't hear you. Um, but I want to make sure we get what questions we have as
Okay.
well as what we got on the screen. So we'll just rotate.
Yeah.
Some of the questions that were sent in to me afterwards are very important questions, I
Okay.
think that will lend to the conversation. So I think just mixing them in if we have time is
Okay.
fine. We have a couple of people asking questions, so I want to grab those live questions as well.
Okay.
Sure. So, and we got a little bit of clarity also on the question about queer. She writes, my question is genuine as I have heard people identify as queer and I don't know what it
So it
means.
sounds like Martrinia was just asking for knowledge wise and
Yeah,
understanding what that term
yeah,
is. I always tell people as well, because I do a lot of work around the LGBTQ plus population and also educating uh, other mental health professionals. And I always say the term queer is something that a person use if they identify as being a part of that community. Is you wouldn't call a person queer unless they identify as being queer. I think queer was a very derogatory term that we now, especially in the Black and brown communities, have kind of taken back and made this powerful badge of honor. So normally you don't use the word, in my opinion, you don't use the word unless you're a part of the community or you've heard somebody identify as queer, and then it's kind of cool to kind of relay that information.
yeah. And just to provide a little bit of nuanced clarity, I used to identify as a lesbian, but I shifted that identity evolved and shifted as I started to understand my identity, my sexual orientation a bit more. And lesbian no longer encompassed, all of the everything on the spectrum or everyone on the spectrum that I might be attracted to. I often find myself attracted to trans men and trans women. And so the label lesbian no longer fit. It just was a little bit too small for the broader range. And so I tend to personally use it as more of an umbrella term that distinguishes me from being straight or heterosexual.
Thank you. Okay, Black Thought, we got another question.
Yes, we do. Indeed, we do. The question is that reads: would you suggest a person inquiring if they've been molested, if they noticed intimacy issues? If so, how would you suggest they navigate the conversation? Um, so, are you asking if the person, if they've been molested, are they having intimacy issues, and how would you ask a person about that? Um, Go ahead, Jess.
Sorry. I'm trained in trauma. I do a lot of work with trauma, and obviously, as a sex therapist and as a survivor of sexual abuse, I do a lot of work around that realm. I think we got to break this mindset that because a person isn't straight or because a person is having issues sexually, that there has to be some sort of trauma. I feel like there's this underlying thing where, oh, if they're gay, there had to be trauma, or if they don't like sex or sex isn't their thing, then there has to be trauma. So for me, I think it's when we're looking at intimacy issues as sex therapists and sexuality professionals, we're looking at a person's complete and holistic sexual history. So there's a lot that goes into that. A lot of time, a person might not want to be intimate with you because they just don't like you. A lot of times, that's literally what it boils down to. I see a lot of couples that love each other, but guess what? They don't like each other. And if they don't like you, they probably don't want to have sex with you and they don't want to be intimately connected with you. So it could be a lot of different things. A person who has had molestation or sexual abuse can have very healthy and plentiful sex lives. I am a living witness and testimony to that. So just because they've had that trauma, if that trauma is present, doesn't mean it's going to negatively impact their sex lives as well. It could be a lot of different reasons why a person is having intimacy issues. Your breath could be stank. You can have body odor. I mean, there could be lots of different things. Number one reason why people don't engage in fellatio and cunnilingus is hygiene. That is the number one reason why they don't want to suck your penis and why you ain't eating their stuff. Number one reason, hygiene. Hygiene, second reason, I don't know how to. right? I avoid it when I don't know how to, so I don't have to feel embarrassed. So when you say intimacy issues, that could mean an array of things. If
Mhm.
I wouldn't say you personally start saying, hey, well, since you don't want to do this, have you been molested? Because that could put somebody up on their guard, and it could be triggering if they have. I think it's really about creating a space within your relationship that people feel comfortable to tell you
Mhm.
the ins and outs of what they've been through. That's a very personal thing for someone to share with someone. So I say, hopefully, you're getting to know, getting back to that emotionally nakedness, right? I say we're real quick to get physically naked and not quick to get emotionally naked. But that emotional nakedness is what we need in order to have this level of intimacy that you're probably alluding to, Brian. So I say, space and a conversation that your partner can feel, and hopefully your relationship makes it so they feel safe enough to disclose to you if they have, but not necessarily going right to, oh, you having a problem or issue with this means that you were molested, or questioning if they were molested. Not liking, being different, not fitting this box that society says you have to be in does not always equate to trauma.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And people with a traumatic history can still have a very successful and healthy relationship. You know, just because you've had trauma, and I think you already said that, doesn't lend itself to destruction and everything else. So you just be mindful of that when you have those questions in the back of your mind. Um, Build a relationship with that person and get to know them first before you kind of count them out. So
Ashley has a very good point. He made.
let's see. All right.
Absolutely.
Let's see.
As she says, there are folks or people who are asexual and have no trauma history at all. So it may not have anything to do with molestation. So when we're talking about aromantic, asexual, I know y'all hating that we use all these terms and we don't have time to really define them. But there are people, you can be asexual and be poly.
Yes,
Hell, you
and
could be monogamous and be in a polyamorous relationship. So there's no one, like Ruby said, and Dr. Monica said earlier, there's no one size fits all. So yes, I think we as Black and brown people always try to come up with an excuse or something that makes us feel more comfortable as to why someone is different. And so I just want to make sure that we challenge that mindset that everything isn't trauma. I don't know, Ruby, did you have something to add?
no, I was just reading. Janelle made a statement. Is it possible for couples to be in a relationship without having sex? Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
More
You
often
can.
than you think.
Yes, you can. Because intimacy or sex and intimacy have been equated together and synonymous. And typically when people think about sex, they're thinking about the act of genitalia connecting, or fingers or mouths, something related to that particular one area of a beautiful array of erogenous zones, right? And so when it's reduced down to that, and that's being a relationship, to me, that does a disservice to the possibilities of committed. Yes.
Yes, and I think it's important also.
Sorry, I had to unmute myself. Janelle is now asking, is that healthy? So I wanted us to just touch
Oh
on
wait,
that. I know I have a couple who is extremely adorable. They've been together for a while, been married for a while, and they don't have sex. It's only unhealthy if it begins to impact their relationship and the dynamics of their relationship. They now realize that this is something that they need to work on. It's been about 4 years since they've had sex. And so that's why they're coming to see me. They're coming to see me to explore how can we, they're like picture perfect on paper. They're best friends. They have what we would want as a strong as hell foundation for a relationship. The problem is they've gotten so complacent with that level of their relationship without that romantic piece. It's only unhealthy if they see a problem with it, not necessarily because of us. We might say, that's not my preference. I can't be with somebody and not have sex with them. I can't be in a sexless relationship. There are plenty of sexless relationships. Sexless relationship is defined as 10 or fewer times a year. Trust me, they're more frequent than these relationships we see playing out on TV. There are people who don't even sleep in the same beds anymore. It's people that ain't had sex for 10, 15, 20 years for multiple array of reasons. It doesn't make their relationship unhealthy. It might just be less than desirable for some of us who have to have an active sex life.
Absolutely. And you don't always have to have penetration or friction to have pleasure. There's so many, pleasure offers itself up in so many ways. And so, it just depends on the relationship, the couple. It could be two people who are asexual.
Mhm.
And, I'm pretty sure they're going to figure out a way how to still achieve some kind of pleasure and for that relationship to be healthy as well.
And because you're asexual does not mean that you are pleasure adverse.
Yeah. Yep.
So I think we got a question for like one more question so we can wrap up.
She's a sergeant of arms. She don't play, y'all. Let me just let y'all know that right now. You got a question for us, Chaz? I know you said some other people sent some stuff in. I wasn't able to put that on the
Yes, give me 1 second and I will pull those up. All right, so basically it says, is there a sexual schedule or how are mates shared? Was one of the questions that came in. So when we're thinking polyamory and polyamorous relationships, is there a sexual schedule or how are mates shared? I thought that was a pretty good question. Want to make sure we answered that on air.
I don't know. I am the most, I believe that prioritization is better than the word schedule. That's me personally when I work with people. And so for some, they have designated times that they meet with partners if there's multiple, so that there is accessibility and equitable emotions. I can't even think of what I'm trying to say right now. I got a little flustered real quick. Dr. Monica, take over real quick because
Sure.
I am having feelings and emotions right now.
So yes, I think there you absolutely can prioritize or structure scheduling of however your time. I think it's important to understand and to recognize that time is not infinite. It's not limitless. We all have our limitations, and so we have to figure out how to balance, how to manage, how to juggle the different relationships and the time and energy that we're putting into those relationships. But I also think one of the things I want to also clarify with that question. I think it assumes that all relationships are sexual in nature. So rather than looking at scheduling sex and sexual, all of that kind of stuff, I prefer to think of it as just figuring out how you're going to manage your time. Just like if you're at a job, you got things that you got to do. You got to make sure that you are putting the time where it needs to go. That you're taking care of your priorities. That the people in your life feel valued, feel loved, feel cared for. And so when you're looking at it from that perspective, yeah, sometimes it does come down to a calendar and figuring out, okay, some people choose to use calendars and scheduling and figuring out, I gotta, Monday through Tuesday, I'm spending at such and such a place, and Wednesday through Friday or whatever, I'm gonna be here, and and negotiating that kind of stuff. Sometimes that is a part of your polyamorous dynamic, and sometimes it's not. So different people do that differently.
And that's also related to monogamous as well. It just depends on your agreement. It depends on what you and your partner wants to do. So again, if Ruby is gonna travel or somewhere, and she likes to get knocked off or rocks off or whatever else while she's traveling, go ahead and get that done. That's our agreement. That's what we are okay with. That's what we agreed to. We both consented with, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're just going to move forward in light and love of that. And so I really enjoy that, Polly, and CNM just really gets the word consent right. And we just have to work on that in the monogamous relationships a little bit more.
And I do want to say that I want to say one of the top 3 reasons that non-monogamous couples come to see me is about time sharing and priorities and not feeling that polyagony. You know, polyagony is that feeling of being displaced or, the lack of resource of time with the partner, and just the act of sharing, someone like they're a piece of pie. That's what I let people know that they're not pies, right? It's not necessarily about equal, but it's about equitable. And so just getting couples in and having those conversations, it's going to be ever fluid and flowing, depending upon needs and expectations and etc. So how do people set it up? They work together, set it up for how it works right now, try to be consistent. Consistency allows for trust. Trust allows for that security within a relationship, that's secure attachment. And then, when that schedule stops working, then you have another conversation, and so it's about negotiation, conversations, and just everyone don't be an asshole.
Can we underline that? Everyone don't be an asshole.
Thank you, Ruby.
If you get nothing from this encore, don't be an asshole.
Don't be an asshole. Good thing. All right. Wrap it up,
time
baby.
Is over. Okay.
Wrap it up.
I've said all I can say for the rest of the night.
I just
not you being speechless.
Shut up.
That's an amazing feat, huh? I just want to say in closing, Breeze, like I always say, you always want to make sure that you're intentional with whatever you do. But self-discovery is of utmost importance when you're talking about CNM, opening your relationship, so on and so forth. Just make sure you enjoy the journey, but understand where you're at in your relationship, and don't go in just trying new shit just because it's new. You have to understand who you are and try to figure out where you fall within this relationship, because you're not only messing up your life, you have somebody else's life you're going to be messing over too. So just be mindful of that. Intentional self-discovery.
All right. Anybody else? Last words. Let's close it out, baby.
You ready to go, Renee?
I'm the gatekeeper.
I would just say thank you all again for having me. And I think for anybody who is out there who's considering opening up your relationship or just considering, something other than monogamy, start with doing your homework. There's no reason, with Google, with all the resources available to us, that we should be, jumping in, stumbling and falling over things that we could easily learn about, ask about, find community of other people, who are in the lifestyle. So definitely do your research and do your homework.
Yes.
Chastity?
She can't hear us.
She can't hear us.
Yeah, she's been having some technical difficulty.
Y'all talking to me?
Yeah. Last words, Mama.
See, it's a little delayed over here. Okay. Takeaways. That's what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
All right. So piggyback off of what Dr. Monica just said, I posted 2 references for glossaries and terminology. I posted the Black and Poly glossary. I also posted the one from More Than Two. So if you go in the thread, you'll actually find those. I'm definitely with her on the research. I know when we were thinking about whether we're going to do the part 2 or not, and whether to do it tonight or do it later. We wanted to do it because there were a lot of people said they had more questions, but also understanding we're not going to be able to answer all your specific questions on air. First of all, we are all licensed therapists, and so we have to make sure that we're operating within our ethical bounds as a professional, but also there's so many pieces to what's going on that we would need to know. So I always say that you have the power to create and cultivate the relationship that you desire. That is my motto. And so that would probably be the only thing that I would want to close with. And if you're looking for resources, this one is a good one. There are more resources than this one, but this is like the ethical Bible of polyamory. So if you want to learn a little bit about a lot, and to at least get your juices flowing, this one I would strongly suggest. It is big. Some people like it big, but you
Size
can also get
matters.
it on Audible for some people. Um, but it's about 15 hours on Audible, but it's definitely worth it. I actually read it while I was working out. So that's how I was able to tackle the 15-hour Audible. So yeah, definitely. You can also reach out to all of us. All of our information
Yeah.
is already posted in the group. So
Mhm.
if you need us from a professional standpoint, feel free to reach out. And that's all I got.
Yeah. And I do want to mention that there are books written by men of color on polyamory. Love's Not Colorblind is one. Also, Race, Monogamy, and Other Myths They Told You is another one by Fuentes is his last name.
Yeah.
Say that one more time, Ruby. I'm typing it in the comments.
See, I have been talking since 8 a.m. Race. I forgot what I said.
Race, monogamy, and other myths they told us.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay.
I couldn't hear her, so that didn't help me out at all.
Race, myths, and race, myths, race, monogamy, and other myths they told you. Got it. Race,
Rate with TH. RATH.
That's close enough. It's close enough. You'll find it.
It's close enough. They'll
Race.
Google it.
Don't have an ass.
They said, "What's the title again?"
More Than Two is the title of the book I just said. She
Thank
just
you.
mentioned two books
Thank
that
you.
were
Thank you.
written by people of color. Love's Not Colorblind, Race, Monogamy, and Other Myths They Told You. And personally, I just added this to the list of books I need to write, and I would love to have you guys co-author this book with me. But I want more books that are written about consensual non-monogamy and polyamory in communities of color, because I feel like this is a conversation that we definitely need to have. And further, don't even tell me you will, because y'all know I'm about that life, and I'll be on you about that life. So I'm just saying.
Okay, I'm going to wrap this up, and I wanted you to know that if you choose to be with one person or more than two or more than three, you still need to never assume. You need to discuss. Okay, everything starts with a conversation.
Yes.
Okay, and a consensual conversation. If you want to go outside your relationship or stay within, you still need to discuss it. Okay, so communicate before comment. And I'm so excited. We had a great time today. I thank my guests, these beautiful, beautiful people, and I'm so excited to be here.
Renee, Noir sex therapist.
Love y'all.
Love y'all. Bye. I'll see you in a minute.
Bye.
Bye.
2 weeks from now, be dancing
Oh.
in King. 2 weeks from now.
Yes. Show up.